Did you know that there's one thing that you're doing daily that's helping your mental wellness? What if you could harness this amazing ability and intentionally improve your cognitive abilities and mood? It's easier than you think.
Welcome to the Wellness Champion Podcast, sponsored by Healthy Transformation Nation. We believe that your health and wellness is determined by your own self-care more than anything else. Join us for each episode when we discover and uncover the keys to self-care in today's complex culture. We enjoy helping others discover the best ways to be well. We'll be visiting the basics for self-care and ongoing wellness that enables you to not only survive, but to thrive. On the Wellness Champion Podcast, we'll be exploring the fundamentals of intentional breathing, your hydration, nutrition, intentional movement, and your wellness mindset. The Wellness Champion Podcast is your time for a mindset reset.
Intentional movement is what we're talking about today. Intentional movement improves your cognitive ability as well as your mood. And before we get into that, I just want to kind of say one thing about how it sort of works the other way around, too. Now, I think everyone's heard of Dick Van Dyke, right? You know who Dick Van Dyke is.
Of course.
The entertainer, performer, dancer. Love that guy. And I've actually got a great book that I recommend. It's called Dick Van Dyke, Keep Moving. And in this book, he does write one thing about something that many of us aren't aware of what happened with him when he was, well, now this is back when, now you're probably familiar with the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, right?
Correct.
He did that movie back in 1967. He filmed that movie. And during the filming of that movie, he was injured on set. He was doing a dance routine for that Toot Sweets song that is played when they're in that factory and he's dancing around. Well, he injured himself during that. He actually pulled a muscle in his leg. Well, he thought he did. He wrote, let's see if I can find it. I was working on the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in England and suffered an injury while shooting the musical number Toot Sweets. If you recall, it was an elaborate production number set in a confectionery kitchen that had celebrated the invention of a revolutionary new candy, the Toot Sweet. Before the scene, I did not take the time to warm up. I never warmed up back then. And in the part of the dance where we spin around on the bakery carts in a mix of ballet and acrobatics, I felt the muscle in the back of my left leg pop, like a rubber band that snaps and loses its elasticity. Then, oh boy, did it start to hurt. I sloughed it off, of course, or tried to. I told myself it was a simple muscle pull that, in the spirit of show business, the scene must continue. But when the pain not only persisted, but grew worse to the point where I could not pretend to walk normally or limp with a covert abnormality, I feared the damage might be more severe. What did I know? I had never been injured before. I took a few days off and rested my leg, but the throbbing continued. Someone on the crew found me a doctor. I'm not a fan of doctor visits for anything more than regular maintenance. My annual check under the hood. But I knew I had to see a professional about this injury. The doctor saw me right away and took x-rays. A short time later, he delivered a startling diagnosis.
Wow.
Severe arthritis. My God, he said, tapping his finger against the x-ray and shaking his head gravely. You're covered with arthritis from head to foot. I'm surprised you could dance. I've never seen so much arthritis in a single person. Wow. And then Dick Van Dyke, of course, the funny man, replied, what about a married person? He thought he would make a joke to lighten the seriousness, but it didn't work. It didn't. Married or single, you're literally suffused with arthritis, he said. What about the pain in my leg, I asked. It's the arthritis, he said. This was not a joking matter, he explained. The condition was serious, far worse than the muscle tear, and it was only going to get worse. Within 5 to 7 years, you will be using a walker, if not in a wheelchair, he said. Wow. A walker? A wheelchair? Those words upended my relationship to the world. My center of gravity, like everybody else, was under my own 2 feet, and I was being told those 2 feet of mine were about to be rendered lame, if not useless. The prognosis scared me to death, to the point where I did something rash, something downright defiant. I stood up in the examining room, then and there, and I started to move. Not just move. I lit into a dance, as if proving to myself I could still order my body to do a soft shoe any time I wanted, despite the pain in my leg. The doctor was astonished. "My God," he said, as if watching a dead man start to breathe again. My God, indeed. That was in 1967. I was 40 years old, and I have not stopped moving ever since.
Wow.
So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to point out with this example of what Dick Van Dyke writes about in his life, is that not only does movement improve your cognitive ability and your mood, but your mood and your cognition can also enable your movement.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But, a lot of people, so with that said, let's get into how does your mind improve with movement? And what does that mean for everybody? I know that I move all the time. And so, and I personally, I do practice intentional movement every day with yoga.
Right.
But for many of us, we don't necessarily, not all of us may have an intentional practice of movement.
Right.
And, what does that mean? How do I, in my day, what can I do that's simple? Or how do I just simply, maybe I don't want to go out and do yoga or go running or something, but how do I work movement into my day?
That's a great question, because we're so busy all of the time running around, working, taking care of the kids, taking care of ourselves, picking the kids up from, school, then maybe there's soccer, or maybe you're single and you're just getting up, you got to take care of the puppy, and then you get up in the morning, you're going to work, you're doing all of the things, whatever your lifestyle is. It's a lot of times you wake up and it's go from there. Just go full force, full throttle. And when you're in that state, it's you have all this, amped and you're ready to go and get going, but you can only sustain that for so long. And so one thing that I've been learning about is your circadian rhythm. Your body has a rhythm. We all have rhythms, and we have waves, and we have cycles and stuff to our body. And one thing I've been learning about is ultradian rhythm breaks. And I was like, what is that? What is this thing? And what it does is there are 20-minute breaks that you would take after working a certain amount of time, which is usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So you take about a 20-minute break, but that 20-minute break can be something as simple as going out for just a simple walk. It can be getting into a meditation, or even just a simple 15-minute yoga practice, even something simple as that. Now, obviously not everybody has a yoga studio at work or they're on the road. So walking is a wonderful way of doing that. You can also do, believe it or not, chair yoga. There is a chair yoga. You can do yoga right from your chair. For some people, they don't have the ability to walk, so you can use chair yoga. So you definitely, this ultradian rhythm breaks are so helpful to the body, and it does improve clarity of mind as well, because you're giving the mind a break to get off focus of what you're focused on for this huge amount of time. And a lot of times I used to work in retail, and when I worked in retail, I rarely took breaks, because breaks are for the weak of heart. You got to keep going. You got to make those sales. But what you're doing in those instances is that you're not giving the mind a time to break and integrate everything that it's been taking in for hours and hours. You're just sitting there, and it's loading up, and that causes stress on the body, because it needs to be a release.
So what's an example of an activity?
Well, I guess walking is good. You can, if you have a dog, you can always walk your dog. For those of you that work from home, Like I mentioned, you can do chair yoga. You could get into a meditative state and use some intentional breathing with that as well. I personally love a little walk because when I move, I'm clearing my mind and I'm allowing a little bit of my time and creativity to start in there. And I also notice that I have my mood increases where I feel better. I feel uplifted.
Yeah. These little breaks to take when you do engage your body in intentional movement, and no matter what that is, this intentional movement does release endorphins.
Yes.
Which helps reduce stress and anxiety. Of course, it improves your mood, increases your feelings of happiness and well-being. So yeah, that makes sense.
It also helps you reconcile what you've been taking in for the last 2 hours as well.
True,
And that's
yeah.
really important
Yeah.
because the brain needs time to kind of get everything categorized and then go back with a fresh perspective. In that 20 minutes, it doesn't seem like it would do very much, but it really does. It really recalibrates the brain. It uplifts the mood with the intentional movement in those times, and it gives you a place just for self-care in those moments. And maybe you'd want to go for a walk with another person, or maybe you're someone like me that likes to do it alone because I like to do things alone a little more. But whatever it is, getting that movement in, that break in for that 20 minutes will really make a difference in your productivity, your clarity of mind, your overall mood, and your productivity will increase as well.
Right. I was just going to mention that.
Yeah.
If you're in the workplace and there's any question about whether or not you should be taking a break because you got to get your work done, well, studies have shown that regular intentional movement will improve your cognitive function, including your memory and your attention and your decision-making abilities. So you're actually going to be better at your job if
Absolutely.
you take these breaks.
Yeah.
When you take these breaks.
Because of the improvement, 100%, the productivity goes up tremendously when you take that time for yourself. And it seems so counterintuitive because we're in a society that says keep work, but a lot of studies are finding that some companies are actually moving to a 4-day work week, and they're finding that extra time for self and family is huge. And then if you're implementing those 20 minutes in between, oh my gosh, that's just amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that just brings us full circle around to when I started out by reading from Dick Van Dyke's book, where his mindset enabled him to keep moving. I mean, he's 97 years old today.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, I mean, yeah, we're talking many, many years where following a doctor telling him, within 5 years he was going to be
wheelchair,
probably in a wheelchair, if not in a walker.
Yeah, exactly.
And so his mindset was what drove him and gave him the ability to keep moving. And I submit that him keeping moving also contributed to his mindset, helping him to keep moving. So it's a reciprocal.
Absolutely. They work hand in hand together, 100%.
Yeah.
Mindset and the movement, it really does make a difference because just hearing, he made a declaration in that office that I'm going to keep moving. It doesn't matter. I'm not stopping because this is what I have found is part of my wellness. He found that there was so much wellness within that, and he was not going to be stopped moving, and he wasn't going to stop his career and his life just because one individual told him so, that this is your lot in life. And he said, I'm going to take it in a different direction.
That's right.
And he empowered himself and he took that, and it was, like you said, it was in his mind. He stated that declaration, and there you go. And here he is, 97, he's still moving and writing books about it.
Right.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And his movement is what has enabled him to keep going too. So
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful
Reciprocity between the two, 100%.
Sure. Yeah.
So one thing that I've been learning about, and I'm going to use my glasses to read because I'm a note taker when I'm learning things, is that the 20-minute break every 90 minutes, it's really interesting because the military has actually looked into this, and they've been finding so many great results by military doing this. But the part that I really find fascinating is that hunger and thirst, fidgeting, these types of behaviors are actually signs cravings for sugar and things are actually signs that your body needs a break. And I did not know that, because I have a tendency to fidget at times. And what my body is saying is that you need a break from this. You need time to get your body moving just a little bit, get kind of shaking it out, just shake out everything and get your brain recalibrated. And I never knew that something as simple as fidgeting or even craving or even like hives or scratching and itchiness.
That's very interesting.
It's movement.
So it's telling your body telling you that you need to move.
Yeah, or
that it needs to
way.
move.
For what it's more of an intentional way. It's like you need a break from what you're doing because your brain needs a break, and it's giving you these warning signs like, hey, take a moment, and then when you do, it's amazing how it stops. It's just incredible, because I was thinking about when I was learning that this morning. I was thinking, you know what, that's really true, because I fidget less when I have that movement. And now I do movement in the morning. I do yoga in the morning, but it's something that I need to do throughout the day, and it doesn't have to be long walks. You can, like we talked about, going outside is another thing to do. Moving around outside, even if it's just around the house or around the building that you work at, it doesn't matter. But changing your area of where you're working from standing to sitting, that's another hack that you can use to kind of get the brain out of its regular schedule, if you will. You're kind of breaking pattern disruption here. Right. And that's another thing you could do is you can stand instead of sit. You can go outside and then come inside and even change where you're working if you're able to do that. Because I know you do that. You'll work downstairs or you'll be upstairs, and you're changing your location, and it makes a difference.
It does.
It really does.
Yeah. Oftentimes what I will also do is when I'm sitting at my desk, I will take frequent breaks where I just simply, I don't even have to stand up, but what I do is I'll just, stretch my arms out, and I'll do a little shoulder roll kind of thing.
Chair movement. Wonderful.
Movement.
Yes.
It's like chair yoga.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I go back to focusing on what I'm doing. And I do that quite often, at least once an hour.
Which is great.
If not more. And that's just, to keep myself engaged. And I think that movement does boost my mental clarity. It does help me. It helps me to refocus on what I need to be doing.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
During the ultradian rhythm breaks, I'm going to call them URCs, the body-mind regulation starts. So during your break, your body sorts and connects all the information you've taken in and categorized by priority, which I thought was fascinating. And that's why people find inspiration when they're walking or they're walking their dog or even petting their dog, because it's releasing a lot of stress. You're not focusing on what you're working on in the moment. And the cells do micro tissue repair. This little rest gives your body that little bit of detox that you need. And I found that fascinating as well. Just taking that time out to do that for that 20 minutes can have great results with the body. The body, basically your cells are going to be singing and have happy faces on them just by doing that 20 minutes every day. And I wanted to share that as well. The other thing that you can notice from time to time, especially if you're working in an environment with other people, is you get annoyed. People can annoy you, and that's a sign that you need a break as well. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. So when you take a break, you're giving yourself a mood adjustment, because people getting on your last frayed nerves, that's when it is
never happens.
No, never, right? That's the time to take that break. That's the time that you can see how you can handle yourself. You'll be more relaxed, more centered and focused, and you can handle the situation a lot better because you've taken a pause. That's the power in the pause right there. So that to me is amazing. So
there are so many benefits to taking a break, to
Right.
not just limited to your body needing movement, but also your interaction with your coworkers.
I mean, can you imagine that if you can have improved relationships with your coworkers just by taking that 20-minute break? It's amazing. And I mean, for some of us, it's just walking outside. For others, it might just be going into the ladies' room or the men's room just to get away from everybody, because every workplace is different. Or for some of us, it might be a break room. But even in the break room, you're just kind of sitting around, and you might be, talking with others, and maybe you really want a break. So I recommend the walk outside is really my favorite out of all of them. It really is.
Back in the days when I used to work in an office, people would often see me in the break room doing stretches,
Of course they did, Bill.
but
And you were going naturally with the rhythm of your body. Your body knew that it needed the
Yes.
movement, and you listened to it. You were very much connected to your body. Where someone like myself, I was not connected to my body at all. I didn't want to move. I didn't think that there was any benefit to moving other than, for me, movement meant exercise. And that was very different than what we're talking about right here.
yeah. But now that you practice intentional movement, what are the differences that you find?
Well, definitely these little breaks that I'm doing, definitely with that in the movement, I feel so much clearer. My anxiety goes down. I feel more centered and mindful, and I feel a greater peace within me. It's almost like doing a little meditation work and then coming back to something. And the perspective changes because my mood is adjusted too. So my perspective at looking at things, I could go in working on something and feel like, oh, I've had enough. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I take that time, give myself that break you need, come back to it. And I'm like, all right, I can tackle this in a totally different way.
Right. Fresh eyes, fresh mind.
Yes, 100%. And it makes
Terrific.
all the difference in the world. So this is a challenge for everybody to try this once a day during your day. Great if you can do it 3 times throughout your workday, but at least once.
Okay.
And I would say probably the best time to do that, honestly, would probably be around that 3:00 afternoon mark. Because that's when a lot of times, they're eating and then they get tired and stuff like that. I would recommend that would be a good place to start. A good place to start is around that time, because people get kind of that lull. And that's definitely something that can make a huge difference going back into finishing up your workday.
So what do you recommend we do at 3:00?
Well, like I said, go out for a walk. You could do
Go
that.
for a walk, do a stretch.
You could do stretches. You could do chair yoga. But when you're doing that, make sure nothing's on in front of you.
Right.
No
Right.
computers
The
on.
whole point is you are taking a break.
Exactly.
And you deserve a break. So
Absolutely.
You were entitled to a break. You've worked hard. Take a break.
You have full permission. You're fully invited to
Right.
take that break for yourself.
Right.
It's only 20 minutes out of your work day. And that is, you usually take a lunch. Some people take a lunch anywhere between 11 and 1. So it really depends on your work break too. But I'm going to recommend at least once. Try that 3:00 hour if that works in your schedule for you. If you have a different schedule where you work mid-morning to evening shift or an overnight shift, then that's totally different. You can figure that out. But I'm just saying the regular 9 to 5.
Sure.
That's what I recommend. And of course, as always, go to htnforyou.com to participate in our amazing community that we have there.
Yeah. Join htnforyou.com. It's HTN, the number 4, the letter U.com. And here you'll find your connection, the community, and the conversations that'll help you in your wellness journey.